Hey guys, my name is Modi and you are welcome to Modi Speaks. Today we are taking another look into the Bondi Beach terrorist attack. That horrific slaughter on December 14th, 2025, where 15 innocent people, including children and a rabbi, were gunned down at a Hanukkah celebration in Australia. Guys, I want you to understand that this wasn't some random act of violence, okay? This was a targeted anti-Semitic jihad inspired by the barbaric ideology of ISIS. And at the center of it is Naveed Akram, the 24-year-old surviving shooter who is now facing 59 charges, including 15 counts of murder and terrorism offenses. But folks, these didn't come out of nowhere. New footage has surfaced, or should I say resurfaced, showing Akram as a teenage radical, preaching Islamic supremacy on the streets of Sydney. We are talking about a kid who was already indoctrinated, telling schoolboys to ditch their education and job for the work of Allah. The video we're going to witness shortly is the face of homegrown radicalization, and it is a damning indictment of how Western governments have failed to crush these extremist networks. Stick around because we're going to break these step by step and expose the links to terrorist preachers and groups and make you understand that Naveed Akram's radicalization was a ticking time bomb that exploded because of weak policies and political correctness. Now, I'm going to show you a video of Naveed Akram at around 17 years old. This video was made back in 2019, and in it, you can see Naveed Akram doing what the Muslims call dawah, okay? That is Islamic outreach. It is basically recruitment, okay? You see him on the streets, mic in hand, greeting people with Assalamu alaikum and pushing the message that Allah is one and Muhammad is the last messenger. He urges people to spread this truth and live by religious obligations above everything else. But it gets worse, okay? Because in one of the clips, he is straight up preaching to young schoolboys, impressionable kids, probably in their early teens, telling them to prioritize the law of Allah over school or work, okay? Now guys, this was a 17-year-old radical out there brainwashing children to put jihadist ideology ahead of their education and future careers. Back then, he wasn't carrying out innocent proselytizing. He was grooming for extremism. Reports from ABC News confirms that this footage shows Akram outside a Sydney train station, hammering home that worldly pursuits like jobs or studies come second to Allah's commands. And Reuters also has confirmed the same 2019 video where he was urging passers-by to follow Islam strictly. This is radicalization 101. People starting young, targeting the vulnerable, and planting seeds that grow into terrorism. Take a look.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers. We're here at Bankstown Station, spreading dawah, doing the work of the Prophets, continuing the work of the Prophets.
6 years ago, Naveed Akram was preaching on the streets of Sydney.
Whether it be raining, hailing, or clear sky, Allah will reward you for whatever actions you do in His cause. Inshallah, this will save you on the Day of Judgment.
Aged just 17, he was among a group of street preachers pushing radical Islam.
So we have to remember to always pray and fulfill our obligation to Allah. The word of Allah is that we obey Him and whatever He says we do.
They posed as peaceful messengers of the Prophet Muhammad to passing teenagers.
You guys are in school, yeah? So it's good, just ask the teacher, can I borrow this room? And just go pray for 5 minutes and go back out.
Not long after this video was recorded, he came to the notice of Australia's domestic spy agency, ASIO.
The son first came to attention in October 2019. He was examined on the basis of being associated with others.
Senior counter-terrorism officials have told the ABC Naveed Akram landed on ASIO's radar after these police raids on an Islamic State terrorism cell. He was closely associating with members of the cell, including the group's self-declared Australian commander, Isaac El-Matari, who was later jailed for planning terrorist attacks.
The assessment was made that there was no indication of any ongoing threat or threat of him engaging in violence.
Do you believe that to be silent?
I've reported factually on what ASIO have found, and the investigation went for a period of 6 months. But it was people he was associated with rather than things that he himself had done.
6 years later, at the age of 24, the former plumber is in police custody after the deadliest terrorist attack in the nation's history.
Guys, you saw that clip. And mind you, this was all the way back in 2019, 6 years ago. But this guy wasn't a lone wolf, okay? He was part of a web of jihadist influencers. And the worst of it all is that Australian authorities knew this. They caught wind of his extremist ties as early as 2019. That is right, guys, 6 years before this particular attack, when he was investigated by ASIO, which is the Australian Security Agency. He was investigated by the agency for potential extremist ties. Why? Because he had a lot of connection to these extremists. According to the Sydney Morning Herald, Naveed Akram was a volunteer member of a street preaching group in Sydney's west called Street Dawah, which has links to multiple Islamic State devotees, including self-declared martyrs and would-be soldiers, before he and his father carried out the country's worst terror attack. Now, in July of 2019, 20-year-old Isaac El-Matari, the self-appointed Islamic State commander in Australia, was arrested for plotting to carry out a terror attack in Sydney's CBD. An associate and fellow ISIS sympathizer, 23-year-old Radwan Dakak, was also charged. Their arrests were part of extensive investigation into a suspected Sydney Islamic State cell by the joint NSW counterterrorism team, which zeroed in on El-Matari's associates. On the day of the raids, Street Dawah movement uploaded photographs of members preaching on the streets of Bankstown, okay? One of the smiling faces of interest from that particular photograph was Naveed Akram. Another video posted by Street Dawah movement in May of 2019 shows Akram speaking to a member of the group. The caption of that photograph describes him as our new brother. Okay, a second video from June 2019 also shows teenage Akram encouraging others to join the street preaching group. He could be heard saying, "Spread Dawah everywhere you can. Spread the message that Allah is everywhere you go." In this photo, you can clearly see Naveed Akram with Street Dawah in July of 2019. The same month, his associate Isaac El-Matari was charged with terrorism and jailed. Again, there were other suspected Islamic State members in the orbit of both El-Matari and Street Dawah. For instance, Joseph Sadie, Mudessa Taleb, and Youssef Wainat, who have all been convicted of terrorism and tied to the group. Sadie was photographed with same Street Dawah in September 2020 and also in March of 2021. He was arrested 3 months later and sentenced in August this year for knowingly associating with terrorist groups in NSW District Court. But Street Dawah on Tuesday denounced Naveed's terror attack and denied that he was ever a member of their movement, instead describing him as a visitor. Don't forget that they posted a video of Naveed Akram in 2019, calling Naveed their new brother. Another one of the convicted terrorists, Youssef Wainat, has also been pictured with the group, appearing in photos alongside other members in 2019. Wainat was arrested later the same year and served almost 4 years in jail after he pleaded guilty to being a member of Islamic State and attempting to recruit minors to terror organizations. During his sentencing, Wainat claimed to have renounced his membership of Islamic State, but in August, the ABC revealed that he had been photographed waving the black flag associated with the terror organization at a pro-Palestinian protest on the Harbour Bridge this year. Naveed was also pictured preaching on the streets of Sydney with another outreach program called the Dawah Van, which was affiliated with Al Medina Dawah Center in Bankstown since their arrests. Now, this particular outreach program is linked to radical preacher Wissam Haddad, also known as Abu Usaid, who vilified the Jewish community in online preachings. Wissam Haddad is a confirmed hate monger who has been monitored for anti-Semitic rants and calls to violence. He has faced legal action for hate speech, and his network is laced with ISIS sympathizers. ABC reports confirm Akram was also a known follower of this particular pro-Islamic State cleric. Now, that should tell you something. By the way, this is Wissam Haddad. Take a listen to his words.
If you attack Allah and our fellow brothers and sisters, and if you attack our land, then you are going to be met with men who love death more than you love life. We can't take away from the fact, first and foremost, that jihad is definitely part of our deen. And as Muslims, we should never ever shy away from this. And yes, there may be types of jihad, but of the peak of this jihad is that which the Messenger Muhammad ﷺ spoke about, and I'll read the hadith soon. And that is fighting in the path of Allah Azza wa Jal. A physical fight, not the fighting of the nafs. Although your nafs is needed in order for your physical to go out in the path of Allah. So we're not talking about the struggle of the nafs, we're talking about the physical jihad, the physical struggling against the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in order to make the word of Allah Azza wa Jal the highest. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says to, which means not equal are those believers remaining at home other than the disabled and the mujahideen who strive and fight in the cause of Allah with their wealth and their lives. Allah has preferred the mujahideen through their wealth and their lives. And for those who remain behind, by degrees. And to both Allah has promised the best reward. But Allah has preferred the mujahideen over those who remain with a great reward. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of the worlds, the creator of everything, is telling us who He prefers. And Allah Azza wa Jal prefers those who go out and fight in His path, and He prefers them over those who sit idle. So their rank with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is greater than us who are sitting idle. Or in that case, anyone who is sitting idle. Their status with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is different than those who are sitting. Although there is also good in those who are sitting. Each of them has the reward. But Allah Azza wa Jal is saying that He has preferred those who go out in His path, in jihad fi sabilillah, He's preferred them above those who sit idle.
What a peaceful, compassionate Muslim cleric. Naveed Akram is a devoted follower of this man. Bear that in mind. Again, Naveed Akram and his father, who has now been killed by the police, reportedly traveled to the Philippines, one of the few nations with an enduring Islamic State presence, shortly before this particular attack. Now, why did they travel there? Possibly for training or to connect with ISIS affiliates there, where jihadist groups like Abu Sayyaf operate. The reason why they went to Philippines and the purpose of that and where they went and when they went to Philippines is under investigation at the moment. Now, further investigations detail how Akram assessed ISIS propaganda, including recipes for explosives and knife attack methods, things that are straight out of the terrorist playbook. Even Memory, a channel which tracks jihadist media, notes that ISIS supporters online are claiming the attack as their own, celebrating the shooting of the Jews. And let us not forget the ISIS flag that was found in the vehicle the killer and his dad used for the terror attack at Bondi Beach. The mere fact that Australian authorities decided to allow this guy's father to be granted gun license, which helped him to acquire multiple guns despite his son's shady network, is totally beyond me, guys. And on top of that, the Australian government let them back into Australia after they visited Philippines, Davao precisely. This is the main city on Mindanao Island, which has a history of Islamic insurgency. A months-long conflict on this particular island in 2017 between armed forces and two militant groups linked to ISIS left over 1,000 people dead and 1 million displaced. This was where these guys went to and then allowed back into Australia without any restrictions, even though Naveed Akram has been flagged by in 2019 and investigated for 6 months. Guys, I hate to say it, but Australian government allowed this to happen, okay? They are partly to be blamed for this, because this is what happens when you prioritize multiculturalism over security, when you allow hate preachers like Haddad to openly operate, spewing anti-Semitism and jihadist crap without deportation. The mere fact that somebody like Wissam Haddad is allowed to walk free in Australia, a guy who spews this type of rhetoric, encouraging people to kill Jews. I mean, check it out. The fact that he and others like him are not rotting in Western jails, rotting in Australian jails, but allowed to roam free and radicalize even more young people is proof that Australia is inadvertently encouraging this type of attacks. If care is not taken, guys, more attacks like this are coming their way. But as always, guys, these are my thoughts and my opinions. Please feel free to share yours in the comment section below, but do so respectfully. Also, if you're not subscribed to this channel, honestly, I don't know what you're waiting for. Subscribe to the channel. Like and share this video to keep people informed, and consider joining my membership or supporting the channel in any way that you can. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope to catch you on the next one. For now, peace.